Up YouTube. So in this video today, we're going to be going through with you guys last cut customers, and I want to have a chat with you about them. My experience this year: have I had an early season finishing off people? Have I had good customers? Who knows? I've not really done many customer focused videos, but I've heard a lot of other people talking on YouTube and off YouTube about the problems they've had with customers, and people wanting to finish early and all that. So I'm going to sort of wade in with my sort of two penneth, and also sort of tell you how I go about dealing with people that want to wrap the season up early. I think the end of the season and the start of the season is the most stressy and faffy and annoyingest part of the season, because what you get is you get the people that basically want to sort of hurry up, wrap you up sort of thing. It brings out the best and the worst in people, I think. I always say the start and the end of the season, it always shows you who your good customers are and who your bad customers are, basically. But, well, we'll discuss this as we get going. But at the end of the season, you get some people rush. Is this the end? Do this, do that. And then the start of the season, you're ringing people up and, oh, no, not yet. The grass hasn't grown yet, Sam. And, oh, it's too wet and all this. And, and you're not trying to take money from them. You're just trying to earn money. You're trying to earn a living. So I'll get on with that as I get going along. So this video has been filmed, I think it's the 15th or the 16th of October today. I'm going to try and get this up as soon as possible. Most of my videos I film throughout. Well, I normally do a block, so I will film, 4 or 5 videos, and then I will sort of add them and, edit them and do stuff like that for these. So I'm trying to do a bit of a mix. I'm trying to do some videos with the gardening and talking, the gardening, like me doing gardening basically, and I'm going to do sort of the talky videos. And I find as well, if anything, the talky ones tend to do that a little bit better, and I think it mirrors how I want my channel to be and my sort. So I don't like necessarily watching people garden. It's no slight to them, but I'm out working all day. The last thing I want to watch is somebody else mow a lawn or show me how to mow a lawn, or watch somebody. I don't. But that to me is not relaxing. But some people get great satisfaction out of it. It's just something that I don't tend to do. I'll use it as a bit of B-roll, but voice over it. But anyway, so there is going to be coming up. There's going to be a wide variety of videos because I'm going to have time during the peak season. I don't get the time. And as well, you've probably noticed this little bug stuck to me here. I'm trying to have a play around with the audio, and I bought a little wireless mic. I've had a look where the voice does come through a lot sharper and a lot clearer, and it does cut down on background noise. But sometimes it can be a bit aggressive, so you might have to play around with your volume. But that's no hardship, because I find quite often videos like this, people are watching them and putting the phone in the pocket and listening to me. I wouldn't want to watch this face for 20 minutes. Jesus wept. So anyway, let's get on with it. So how was my season fared with the people? I find, at the start of the season sometimes, but definitely by halfway through the season, the customers that are going to sort of, oh, is this the last cut? I find what they tend to do, so if it's grass, so if it's a mow and go, they'll plant a little bit of a seed, no pun intended. What they'll do is they'll go, oh, lawn's slowing down. Oh, you haven't took much off it this time. Oh, not much left in the brown bin or the green bin. Our bins are brown, not green, for green waste. Not as much on it this time. And they're sort of letting you sort of know that, I think by doing that, when they hit you with it in a couple of months, in like a month's time, like 2 visits basically, they can be like, oh yeah, well we've been talking about it slowing down. Well, we haven't. You've been telling me, but it hasn't slowed down. My advice, if you get that, is always nip it in the bud and say, well, no, it's still growing like it has been. Yes, there's a little bit of a slowdown in growth, but if anything, it still needs a cut. Try and do what you can to sort of not be pushy, but correct him. I think some people need that. At the end of the day, they're getting a gardener into their property. And, as a gardener, I'm not saying take charge, but some people are paying for that almost. Some people want you to take charge. I think sometimes they don't know what it takes to do a garden, to cut a lawn. You've got to remember some people, they have, their husband's probably done the lawn all their life. So now that they've got to get somebody else in or take charge of it themselves, it's almost too much for them. They don't know. They don't know it can be cut in the wet. They don't know it can be cut close towards winter. Because the husband never used to do it. Why would he? He isn't an idiot. He'd do it when it's a nice day. Or he'd stay in his house. So, like I said, try and, if you can, nip it in the bud there and then. With garden maintenance, I find it's a mad rush with some people to get the borders as cleared out as possible. Literally, and they'll be quite pushy. So, oh, can you clear this? As in anything that's finished flowering, straight down to the ground. They want empty borders because then they think, oh, Sam hasn't got to do them. They eat as quickly as they can. It's a race to get the borders clear, basically. And they'll be mentioning about the lawn and all that other stuff. So my policy is if it's still got a flower and it still looks pretty, it stays. If it's drooping over, it's lost its flower and it needs cutting back, it gets cut back. But if it's still got a flower and it still looks pretty, it stays there till another visit. If that means that we're cutting the borders back right in November, that means that we are. Now, I'm a plant guy in as far as I need to know what I need to know. Do I need to know, do I know exactly when them plants need to be cut back for the best possible growth and the best, I don't know everything. And as a gardener, you probably should. But for me, if it's still flowering, it's putting energy back into the plant, whatever, yeah. And like I said, there's the technical way of doing gardening, what some people will expect. But if people want their place looking tidy, if they've got a hydrangea and it's all grown over and it's starting to look droopy and it's finished flowering, but it's October and they want it trimming right down to the ground, and as a gardener that it should be cut in the new season, right at the very start or early spring, and or the proper way to do it, whatever that is, then well, who's going to win that argument? If the homeowner wants it done now, they only wait 3 months already. Well, it'll look even worse. So this is the thing that I learned a long time ago: is you can advise your customers. It's like the horse to water. You can't make it drink, but you can guide it. And if they want to listen, they can listen. If they don't want to listen, well, you've done your best, haven't you? And if the hydrangea does die or it doesn't flower, well, you've always got it in the back of your mind that, look, you did tell me to cut it when it shouldn't have been cut. Or that rose that you had me hack right down, or whatever, it's their fault. As I said, I think sometimes, you've got to sort of bite your tongue, I find as well. So, I've had it this season, and I've had it with a bloke, and he's a good customer, to be fair. And start of September, he told me, this is the last cut. Now, I've heard other people on YouTube, off YouTube, where they've said about that basically they've had the same thing and then they're thinking of getting rid of them because of that, that it's bad and it's rude, My honest sort of take on it is if they're a good customer and they're giving you good work throughout the season, but they cut the season short, well, it's up to you. Do you lose that good work next year, all for the sake of, a couple of visits extra that is lost? Or do you sort of bite your tongue and say, yeah, that's no problem? Again, you can't tell them what to do, but you can advise them. So I had this chap I mentioned, as soon as September come, did a cut, that will be the last one, Sam. I said to him, I says, well, Mr. Such and Such, we're still doing 2 more cuts for everybody else, or cutting right through until the start of November. Can I advise or can I offer you a cut in 2 weeks' time? No, no, it'll be all sorted now. I said, well, what I'll do is I'll give you a call in 4 weeks' time and I'll leave you a slot. Now, some people might be saying, well, that's what he wants. He wants you to do that monthly cut, you know. Well, if he wanted that, he would have asked that, for one. People aren't shy. He isn't shy. But what it does is it's going to give me a cut, potentially, in 4 weeks. Is that cut going to be vastly more harder? Not really, because it's winter time. It has slowed down. But it's giving me that little bit more of a thingy. So how do I approach dealing with customers and trying to keep the season and extend the season? I'll be honest with you, it's tough, but you've got to, like I said, people are getting you in as a gardener. They don't go to a hairdresser and tell the hairdresser exactly how to cut their hair. They will give them a rough idea. I like this style, whatever. Same when they go to a pub or a restaurant. They don't go to that pub or the restaurant and go, right, I want me steak cooking medium rare, but I want it done in this pan with this butter, and then I want the chips just a little bit brown but not fully crispy, and I want the start. No, they give a rough outline, and I think because they trust the training of the chef, they trust the training of the hairdresser. When people get me in as a gardener, well, we discuss all that at the start. What is it you're after? Oh, I need a gardener because I can't cope. What is it that you struggle with? Oh, well, I just need somebody to do the grass. Okay, that's no problem. Well, what I do is I'll cut the lawn for you. I'll edge it first. I'll tidy up after I've edged it. I will then mow it. I says, and again, I'll just have a little bit of tidy up, you know, so the lawn looks as pristine as I can. But that is, you know, it'll be £20 for a fortnight. I only cut grass on a fortnight. You know, you're laying it out. You're laying your terms and conditions out to them from the very get go. So, and I tend to at the start. I've seen other gardeners where they say this. I'm not being rude with them at all. Or, you know, this is how I do it. But I'm explaining how I think my customer base would take it if I did it this way. I hear quite a bit where people say that the customer asks them, so they tell the customer, oh, we will do 20 cuts, we will do 16 cuts from now until the end of the seat or the end of the cuts. Me personally, I don't do that, and I've never done that, and I'll tell you why. I could be wrong, I could be missing a trick here. I think it's too much information for one. I think for a customer, that, like I said, the husband's always done it, you know, or the cost of living might be biting, whatever. If you say you're going to do 20 lots or 16, whatever, lots of, you know, £25, well, they'll be then thinking, shit, that, 250 quid, that's a lot of I think it's too much information for a customer. Listen to what they say and then say, yeah, no problem, it's going to be £25 a fortnight. Go through your process that you will come, you will crisp up the edges, you'll edge them, you use the strip, you know what I mean? You give them a little overlap the bump, but that's it. And then if I'll leave it at that. If they say to me, when's the end of the season? Well, I'll be honest with you, I tend to say to the customer, well, there isn't no such thing as seasons anymore. And I always make a little bit of a sort of a reference to, you know, when I was younger, there was 4, but now there's only really 2. I said, and I'll say something like, well, I will keep coming until it slows down or it stops, or I stop for the season. And I'll always explain to people that that could be anything up to November, anything up to the end of October, and even into November. I tend to give them the worst case scenario by mentioning November, and you can always gauge people's reaction. If their face falls off their face and the jaw just drops on the floor, you know from that you're going to have difficulty keeping them until the end of the season. But like I said, if they pay on time, they leave you to it, but they cut the season short end of August, then, well, that's it. You've had 5 months or whatever, 4 months of a good paying customer. So I think sometimes, you know, cutting your nose off to spite your face, and I'm not saying that as if it's how you want to run your business. Me personally, I'd think, well, you know what, they leave me to it, they aren't a bother, you know, whatever. Maybe I'm just talking myself into it, but I can cope with that, and I can put up with that if I'm being honest with you. Some people might mean, well, no, and I can see why, because you leave time for a customer. You will turn away work. If you were busy, you were leaving a slot for Mrs. Such and Such, 9 o'clock for an hour and a half, you know, because you book your time out in your head, and you leave that slot until November or until those 16 or 20 cuts come. If she backs out 4 cuts before, you've got to find 4 lots of that money, really, haven't you? And the flip side is, and I don't believe this too much, but people say, well, if everyone did it, well, if everyone does it, you aren't picking up on the signs, or maybe there's a reason, you know, maybe the ground round where you are is boggy, you know, who knows? But I think it's very rare. Not everybody wants to save money. Not everybody wants to cut back on the gardener. You know, I had it with one lady, and to be fair, I'm 50-50 on whether to say to her next season, I won't be working for you anymore. Basically, make the excuses, because in all fairness, she is a bit of a pain in the arse. She is a bit of a nightmare, but she does leave me to it, and for the most part, she's good. But again, she's not stopped. So I'm supposed to have gone to her fortnightly, but what she's saying now is she's saying, well, it's such a lot of money. It isn't. It's a £25 cut, which I think is bang on value. They say, well, could we stretch it to every 3 weeks? Uh, and I'll be honest with you, it's. I went to a Monday, so what was that? Like the second week of October. The grass from looked just the same as how I left it, so there was very minimal growth. So her saying to me, could you do it next week instead, which will be 3 weeks, and then we can go from that? Well, yeah, if I'm being honest with you, I don't mind that. And I did say to her, and I says, look, yeah, that's no problem. But peak season, it is to be kept on a fortnight. I only cut grass during the peak season on a fortnightly basis. And she says to me, says, yeah, no, I understand that. But she says, and you can't argue with this. She says, but at the moment it has slowed down. And I says, yeah, I completely agree with you. And, you know, I'm not going to lie to her. I'm not going to say, no, it needs to be done on this day. If I can accommodate, I will. I'm not a pushover, but you pick your battles that you think you're going to win. Me having it out with this customer, who is a bit of a funny bugger, but she's a good customer, you know, who I do work for friends and a family as well. Me sort of forcing it for a week, you know, to do the work a week, every 2 weeks, which she did agree on. You know, like I say, it's how you want to run your business. So what I've said to all my customers is, so I tell them, if they ask me, I'll tell them, but normally I end up telling people just so they've got a bit of a picture in their head. And what I say to them is that you'll get fortnightly cuts in October, and then what I'll do is I will see you again after the last fortnightly cut in October. I will see you again 4 weeks from now to give you another cut, and then that should see us through till the new season. Now, I do that because, in all fairness, I think by the end of October, looking at my lawns, uh, I think the grass would have slowed right down, and it would be a case where that's fine. If anything, that could be the last cut. Now, the whole point of my business is visits, to get as many visits as I can. You basically, and it's like anything, you want to do as much work for you as you can for any customer, don't you? That's what I want to do. So for me, it's I to be fair, I could be finished up by the end of October with, I'd say, most of my properties. The garden maintenance one is different because there is still work to be done. So I take them case by case, but in general, the mow and goes are getting pretty much wrapped up by the end of October. Now, by the end of October, if I'm still taking the same amount of grass off, I'll be back in 4 weeks. Is that grass going to grow out of control? Is it going to look? No, it isn't. I know it isn't. It just puts the customer's mind at ease. If anything, that last that towards the end of November, that last-ish visit, That's almost a bonus for me. That's so I know that roughly half of my regular work, I've got one more visit. So that's a placeholder for me where I can sort of not bank on that money being there, but as close to, if that makes sense. So, like I said, I always sort of include that. And again, you can tell by the reaction. You can tell by if they're gonna, you know, be a bit pissy. Now, what would I do if I go to the end of October, do the fortnightlies, and then I say, right, I'll see you again in 4 weeks. No, no, that's the last cut. Well, again, do I give up on a customer that has given me loyalty for all year? They've done the cuts that I've asked for them. They've done the work. They've been good. Well, I'm not. I'm not. If I'm being honest with you, it is. You know the crap ones. You know the ones that are constantly trying it on. You know the ones that are doing whatever they can to basically get you to finish earlier. Basically you know who's going to be on your shit list or your two can list by the end of the year. You know that by half of the season. So, will I be making some customer cuts next year, and what have I based that on? Yes, I will. Like I said, I mentioned that lady earlier. She is a bit of a funny bugger. She's okay for the most part, but when there's a problem, it's a big problem. Right. So I did one where I cut the lawn after it had rained. Of course, it's Britain. It rains all the time. She had a bit of a moan saying about all the grass that was left behind the last time I did it, which I can't even remember because most of the time I've been there it had been dry. But of course it was, I can't do it. I'm too old to brush all this. As I said, when there's a problem, there's a problem. But 9 out of 10 times it's going good. The only people I'm looking at getting that next year is I've said to myself within 3 years' time, I want to get rid of all my hourly work. And I've got a couple of people that I'll be dropping next year that are hourly customers, that they're unreliable, they're late payers. Like I said, I can put up with it and I have put up with it. But next year, they will be going. There's nothing personal, and I do believe this. I think in business, nothing should be personal. Nothing should be, I'm going to get rid of them because they're an arsehole and I'm going to get enjoyment, whatever. It's up to you. For me, I've worked for, it's like Brenda, she was a nightmare, pure nightmare. But when I got rid of her, it was to get rid of her for the benefit of me and the business, not to get one over on her or get any form of joy. We don't sort of operate like that. I don't anyway. I haven't got time for it. But like I said, you want to stick to your nip it in the bud if you can, and it's up to you how you want to present yourself to the customer. I try and present myself as a garden. It's a hard one because if people ring you up and say, "Hey, I need a gardener," I don't go, "I'm a garden manager," but I adopt that role within their property. If I see something that needs doing, I will mention it to them, and I'll put a plan. I'll give them an option. I'll give them a price. I make it as easy as I can. With one of my customers, she's she lost her husband last year, and he used to do all the gardening. Now, I never said anything last year, but I know there was certain things that because I've been working next to her for a few years, so I know there's certain things the husband and I would have done it at the same time, but they weren't done. They were missed off because obviously she's going through grief. This year, she asked about the garden, and she says, just can you take over the lawns? I've also done other bits and bobs. And I've said to her over winter work, because there is winter work there for me, there's cutbacks, there's a few of the shrubs and the trees, one of the trees needs dropping down. And for me, it's work that's left on the table. And I says to her, I says, look, I says, I've got a few ideas for winter work for you. If you want me to take that border back down, clip them all down, I can do that for you. I says the tree in the back ideally would want a bit taken off it just before it giving her some ideas. And she's thought about it and she says, oh, well, yeah, I was thinking about that. Yes, if you will. No, there's one thing she had to think about. There's one thing she agreed to. I asked about the fascias and gutters to give that a clean. And she's having to think about that. I do think, and this makes me sound like I'm making the customer sound a bit thick. They aren't. But I do think if you give people too many options and too much information, it's too much, if you get what I mean. People can be very sort of one thing at a time, one track. And if you're like, this needs doing, it's 30 for this, 40 for that, 50, it's like the auctioneer in their head, and it's too much for them. So that's how I've gone about it, and that's how I've approached different things and different situations as I've run my business. So let me know, guys. Let me know how you're going on. Have you had any people knocking on and when's the last cut? Is it soon? Let me know, guys. Also, let me know if the audio is any better. I do hope so. It is only a cheap little mic, but I do, like I said, I do want to try and make the audio experience as good as I can anyway. So, again, let me know, guys. Have a good day. Keep on gardening now.